Hi, and thanks for tuning in to learn about recruiting at public interest firms. This is another installment in our private sector strategy series. My name is Rob Kikasi. I'm Executive Director in the Office of Career Strategy. And at the beginning of my career, after clerking, I actually worked at a public interest firm. We're going to give an overview of the industry before diving into our roadmap. Private sector practice is comprised of a range of employers, including different types of law firms. Perhaps less well known than their big law counterparts, public interest firms, sometimes referred to by the more general term plaintiff side firms, have drawn the attention of Georgetown students and alums for the blend of mission driven work, autonomy, and compensation. The goal here is to provide some guidance for the job search in this space, as these firms do not cultivate the same recruiting presence as their larger private sector counterparts. We'll cover three areas in this brief how-to. What do these firms do? How do these firms recruit? And the strategies for getting hired. While there are no official criteria for what makes a particular firm a quote-unquote public interest firm, typically they are for-profit organizations that handle matters with a strong social justice component. This mission orientation is part of the core of their practice. Frequently, attorneys at these firms will find themselves on the plaintiff side of a matter in a civil suit, attempting to protect the interests of an underrepresented and often marginalized party. In this way, these firms align with nonprofit institutions. While each firm operates differently, a common thread to the work is bringing cases in certain areas on behalf of these parties. These areas often include civil rights, consumer protection, antitrust, whistleblower, labor, environmental, immigration, and certainly more. Many are focused on litigation. Within this practice, some pursue class action matters, while others take on individual clients. Many do both. Be curious in talking to attorneys to inquire about how each firm is structured, the degree to which they specialize, and whether the firm takes on commercial matters to fund the public interest work. There is no one-size-fits-all version of these firms. Additionally, try not to get too caught up at the outset about the labels in this corner of the world. Not all plaintiff side firms would reasonably be characterized as public interest, and not all public interest firms sit on the plaintiff side. Some, for instance, may take on criminal defendants. At some level, it's a fairly subjective designation that depends at least in part on the view of the attorneys working there. As is probably apparent by now, these firms are not like Big Law in terms of the clients they work with and their orientation around a particular vision. This difference in practice focus mirrors a fundamental difference in recruiting. Getting hired by a public interest firm does not follow the OCI-heavy process that Big Law uses. To explain the salient differences, it's helpful to follow the money. Despite being organized as a firm, public interest firms do not have the same revenue streams as Big Law. Most of the time, public interest firms are taking their cases on a contingency basis. Put crudely, they only get paid if they win. This basic fact has implications for how they hire. Implication 1. Public interest firms usually do not employ recruiters or spend time and money attending recruiting events. For example, firm recessions or OCI. These measures are costly. Don't expect to see them interviewing candidates at job fairs, and some might not even take the time to curate postings. Instead, public interest firms may simply wait for candidates to approach them. You have to go to the firm. Implication 2. These firms may not hire on a predictable timeline, or even take students each year. Often they're looking at talent on an as-needed basis. We can't assume a particular hiring season. Implication 3. Public interest firms hire in small numbers, and working for them during law school rarely promises a postgraduate return offer. In both aspects, this differs from Big Law hiring. To maximize productivity in their attorneys and cut training costs, which is necessary to keep overhead low, these firms take on few, if any, summer associates and often hire permanent attorneys by looking to lateral candidates or clerks with experience. Implication 4. Based on the above, these firms can often afford to be selective in their hiring. So what can you do to maximize chances? First, networking is vital. It's important to be proactive in identifying firms and speaking to lawyers, both to educate yourself about the firm and to get on their hiring radar. Make it easy to notice by reducing the costs of searching for candidates for these firms. Second, when you're applying, be sure to highlight practical skills and substantive knowledge to show how you can have an immediate impact if hired. Academic performance and prior mission-oriented experience are also important. Finally, look to build a portfolio of experiences throughout law school. Use summer work, externships, and clinics to build these skills and show your alignment with the work these firms do. You can go beyond the public interest firm sector in doing so, as the work at nonprofits and certain sectors of the government may align well with work at these firms. For postgraduate candidates, a clerkship is often a very valuable credential as well. Finally, strategies for getting hired. Step one is to figure out the universe of firms here. The best resource for corralling these firms is the Harvard Guide to Plaintiff and Public Interest Firms. It's linked to here and it's easily Googled. It provides a helpful intro to the sector, and then it breaks down firms by state and the focus of their practice. Use this guide, supplemented by inputs from attorneys you speak with, to create a list of firms that interest you. Given the size and competitiveness of this market, it's best to stay broad initially. Next, once you have a list of firms in place, start the process of finding a contact at each. Use our online resources for leveraging LinkedIn and Hoya Gateway. Once you've found some contacts, it's important then to use email to conduct outreach to these attorneys. In the email, request a conversation about the firm. You can approach from an educational and exploratory posture early on. Ask about the practice focus at the firm, how they source cases, which is critical, what they look for in young attorneys, and or if they expect there to be any opportunities opening up at the firm. This becomes fodder for a cover letter and targeted resume when it comes time to submit materials. More guidance on networking is available on our website. And the final step, make sure that you stay organized and proactive in the search. Try to stay connected to the firms and attorneys, perhaps using a spreadsheet to track your contacts and outreach. Look for ways to keep the conversation going. And remember, they may not always post positions, so having an ally at target employers may be vital in accessing a hidden job market. These firms offer mission-driven work and often compensate their lawyers well. But as noted, recruiting in the sector is not without its challenges. It's important to understand those challenges and then strategize around them to be the strongest possible applicant. Persistence is a key in this search. There are many happy and fulfilled attorneys at public interest firms who had to apply multiple times to get where they are. Indeed, many have gotten there after practicing with another employer and making a lateral transition to the firm. So keep at it, and please view us as a resource during your search.